just something a bit more fun, couldn't it? Something a bit more, you just started.
I'd like a different accent or maybe a different voice.
Yeah, then that sort of
the same one.
Yeah, that robot American woman.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with robotic American women, but it would be nice to have variety.
I agree.
Yeah, or something different each time, so you don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Well, AI should be able to randomize that now, right? It should be randomizable.
Randomizable.
All right, let's say hello to everyone. We've just gone straight into a chinwag about random stuff. All right, hello everybody. Welcome. Who was first? Someone with a beautiful name, Paraskovia. Love that. So, good afternoon, Paraskovia from Moldova, and everyone afterwards. Antonia, Mariana, Astrid, Ekaterine, Agnieszka, Alina, Gabella, from all over the world. Lovely to see you all. Thanks so much for coming. Let's hear from everyone. Let's ask them a random question, C and Sarah. What should we ask them? Something random.
What's the weather like?
What's the weather like? Brilliant. For me,
of me, isn't it?
It's nice. It's nice autumn day.
Gloomy.
Yes, gloomy in Athens as well. I was going to ask,
gloomy.
If you had to hide a giraffe, where would you hide it?
Nice.
Is it a full-size one or is it like a soft toy giraffe?
A full-size giraffe.
Definitely.
In a foyer of something like the Shard in London, a tall building's foyer behind a Christmas tree at Christmas.
Yeah, we're very animal focused today, aren't we?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, what about you, Sarah? Where would you hide it?
I don't know where I'd hide it. I think that's why I asked that. I mean, we've got the among the trees in my backyard.
Good one, Anna Maria. Yeah, nice.
Maybe this, up a chimney, just for time.
How are you going to get a giraffe's neck up a fireplace in a chimney?
That's
How's
the
that going to work?
Question.
See, where would you put it? Where would you?
I'll put it under my bed.
You've got a long bed.
Yeah, I'd like.
How long is your bed?
It's very long. Well, actually,
like 20 meters long.
I think its legs would poke out though.
Yeah.
Very hidden.
Oh,
I don't know.
We should maybe reassure the attendees that this is a training event, right?
You're right. Let's do that. Good point, Sarah.
No, just so if you just logged in.
Yeah, we aren't just three random people. We are here hosting an event. Hello, welcome to Macmillan Education's Young Learners Day, everyone. This is the thing. You are here, not just watching a conversation that we're having backstage, which it feels good. Great. Well, it's great to see you all. So yeah, this is Empowering Young Learners Day. Let me share my screen and get my webinar personality started. Here we go. Right, I'm going to assume you can see that. No, good. Right, so what a day, what an amazing day we've got ahead of you. So we've got 3 talks, all focusing on our young learners. So I think we're talking sort of 3 or 4 up until 10, 11. I'd say that's probably the extent of the ages that we're looking at today, looking at 3 different pretty different topics actually today, depending on what you're interested in. So I'm hoping that you'll be here for all 3 of them, but maybe one of them has piqued your interest more than the others. Anyway, so C and Sarah, who you can see now, C and Sarah from Eltonics are doing a session on curiosity and creativity for young learners. So actually, I'm not going to say anything else. I was going to start giving away some stuff that you did earlier, but I won't. Curiosity and creativity, I think, sums up their talk nicely. And then Anna Parr, who worked really closely with our awesome team of people in Macmillan Polska. She's now working with us on the global program. It's so great to welcome her in. This talk is awesome. It's on multiliteracies, and it really helps people to grasp it and use it. It's an amazing session. And then Marcella Sintra, who's doing a session, a beautiful session on empathy and confidence later. So this whole thing will be taking about 2 hours. We're going to be running until 5 p.m. UK time. Greece time, Sarah, or can you give us Greece and Thailand time, please, Sarah?
Well, in Greece, it is now, I have to check actually, it's 5 o'clock. So I guess we'll be running until 7. In Thailand, I've got no idea, but I do notice that one of our participants say they're from Bangkok or are in Bangkok.
Okay, so what
Maybe
time
they
is it
can
now
help
in
us out.
Bangkok? I suppose just for a bit of a, just for a copy paste, if you're looking for some kind of formula for a spreadsheet, it would be now +2 hours.
9 p.m.
Harry, 9 p.m. So it'd be 9 to 11 in Bangkok. In Japan, I'm going to guess something like 12 to 2 or something, or 11 till 1, somewhere around there maybe. Anyway, it's now until 2 hours from now, is how long it's running for. And just a few housekeeping things, just so you're aware, and try to catch you before you ask about it. I know it's really important. So, the certificate of attendance will be coming to you by email within the next week if you're watching on Zoom. That will come to you by email within the next week if you're watching on Zoom. If you're watching on Facebook and or LinkedIn, I don't know if you've got them both open, but you might. If you're watching on social media, there'll be a link in the chat box towards the end of the event where you can click that and you'll be able to get a certificate as well, because you're still doing CPD. It just means you didn't do it via our website, which is fine. We've got your back. You just need to fill out that form that you go to the website and you can get your certificate. So another thing in that email, if you're watching on Zoom, you get a bit of an extra thing. If you're watching on Zoom, you're going to get a virtual goodie bag. And in a little while, we're going to ask you to choose your virtual goodie bag. We've got 3 of them. They've all got these different sort of bits and pieces and wonderful little freebies that we're giving away that we'd like you to have related to the topics that you're going to be hearing about today. So if you're watching on Zoom, soon we're going to give you a little question to choose which bag you would like to have. Just like a little sort of a game kind of thing. Anyway, moving on. I also want to let you know that this session is actually part of a kind of a 3-parter that we're doing, and each one is looking at a different part of a different time in the learning journey. So today, obviously, we're looking at young learners. We're looking at primary. The next session with Dave, Uso, and Maria, we'll be looking at secondary, teenagers. And then later on with Dorothy, Bahar, and Kate, we'll be looking at adults, and that's on the 1st of December. You can look at all the details of all the talks on the website now. Generally speaking, the Engaging Teenagers Day is looking at motivation and inclusive classrooms and various forms within that, sort of various different shapes within the bag. And then on the 1st of December, we've got Educating Adults Day, which is looking at kind of like today, a bit of a wider array of things. So we've got Dorothy Zemak talking about integrated skills. We've got Bahar Gun talking about actually managing a team of teachers or taking control of your own professional development. And then we've got Kate Protsenko talking about skills that you need. It's going to sound like life skills, but it's more than life skills, or whatever you call those life skills, life competencies or whatever. Skills that you need beyond the classroom, for sure. There are lots of skills that we don't really know now if you're going to need them in 10 years' time. But she's going to do a session specifically on skills that we know, or that she thinks people need kind of for life. Skills for life, I suppose. Could have been easier just saying at the beginning. And then throughout the session, we've got a couple of things we're going to ask you, just out of interest, your opinion, what you want in your virtual goodie bags, I've already told you about, and just kind of questions about these topics as well that you're going to be hearing about. And yeah, it will pop up on your screen, super easy. You just click on your choice and we'll share the results. It's going to be interesting. I'm just letting you know, I suppose, that some things will arrive on your screen, so don't be surprised. It's not some kind of
bug
software kind. Or software invasion, which is what I call it for some reason. Bug would work. Okay, now let's zoom in on these wonderful 2. So, C and Sarah, hello again.
Hi.
Hi.
I just had a thing pop up on my screen saying my connection is unstable. So I'm just gonna, I will have a quick thing with you now, but I'm going to go just in case it cuts out. Anyway, so you 2, you've got something. You own a company called Eltonics.
We do.
Don't you? A wonderful place full of love and joy and creativity and social justice and harmony.
We try.
We tried. Yeah.
Why did you start it? Did you feel when you started it, did you feel that there was a bit of a gap there, that sort of these things are not being taught enough to teachers? Is that why you started it?
Yeah, and we also felt that we work a lot with teachers in teacher development and teacher training, and we used to as well in different contexts and together. And we felt that we weren't really bringing in the students' voices into teacher development initiatives, whether that's observations or teacher training courses and so on. And then when we were looking at the teacher training courses that we were delivering as well, we could see that there wasn't much of a focus on how to teach creative thinking skills, not much on adding social justice themes, and sometimes not enough inclusivity and diversity. So this is something that we've kind of tried to focus on in the last few years.
Yeah, for sure. And can I ask, actually, out of interest, I think I don't know, is there a bridge for you between creative thinking and social justice, or is that sort of two arms of Eltonics? I'm interested.
Actually, this is actually something that we're both reading a lot about, but I think, and so therefore, because I'm in the middle of reading it and researching it, I probably can't give you a succinct answer, but yeah, there is an overlap between creativity and social justice, in that they both need a kind of open mind, understanding different perspectives, a kind of sense of tolerance in an uncertain world, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, excellent, amazing. So cool. All right, so I think I've run over again. I always do this, but just great to see you. Thanks again so much for this talk. You're all in for a treat. Have a great one. See you later.
Thank you for having us. It's so great to see so many attendees, so many educators with us, and from so many different places and so many different time zones, which just goes to show how dedicated educators are, right?
Amazing. I want to visit all these places.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you so much for joining us today. So first of all, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah, we're all good.
Yeah. I think
okay.
All right.
So let's start by looking at
let's look at the aims. All right, so this is our main aim today. In 30 minutes, we're going to explore what curiosity and creativity are and how we can put this into practice in our classrooms. It doesn't get better than that, hey, Sarah?
Okay, so with that in mind then, I've got a little bit of a challenge for you and participants, whether you're in Zoom, on LinkedIn or on Facebook, feel free to participate as well. Okay, I'm going to show you 4 images and I want you to tell me how you think these images are connected. Okay, what's the connection between these 4? What do you think?
Ooh, participants, everybody on Facebook, please help me out. Look, I can see 3 things that fly. We've got lots of flying coming through. Freedom, that's nice. Got 2 blue, 2 brown, but to be honest, I don't know how they connect. Blue whales don't fly, unless I'm wrong.
They don't. So we're going to find out. Okay, I'm going to tell you in just a minute. But first of all, okay, each of these 4 images actually answer a question. So for example, the blue whale is the answer to a question. What do you think the question might be?
Ooh, is a blue whale louder than an airplane?
Fantastic. All right. So if mosquito is the answer, what do you think the question is?
Which colour is it most attracted to?
Oh, very good. Yeah, lovely. And what about the next one? What do you think the question is here?
Are all plane seats blue?
Oh, it's a good question. It's not the one I was thinking of, but it's still a great question. Okay, the last one.
Only birds see. No, I haven't got this one. Pressure's on, Sarah. I haven't got it.
All right. Well, you were really close, class. So well done for that. So the first question was completely right. Is a blue whale louder or quieter than an aeroplane? The second question was, why are most plane seats blue? The third question is, what color are mosquitoes most attracted to? And finally, which are the only birds that can see the color blue? Now, the last question, we know the answer, right? What is it?
It's an owl.
Yeah, did you know this?
I had no idea, actually. No,
Okay, so what color are mosquitoes most attracted to?
it's got to be blue, hasn't it?
Yes, that's why I'm wearing pink today. All right, and why are most plane seats blue? Do you know the answer to this one?
No. Why are all plane seats blue?
Okay, so at this point, I'd ask my students to go and research or find the answers to the questions that they didn't know the answers to. So why are most plane seats blue? It's because it relaxes the passengers. The color blue is relaxing. And is blue whale louder or quieter than an aeroplane? What do you think?
I'm going to guess louder.
They can reach the same sound level at 180 decibels, right?
Wow.
Okay, so were you interested in finding out the answers to these questions, see?
Yeah, they're cool. I like them.
Okay, so what linked all of these 4 images then?
The color blue.
Yeah.
Now I know.
Exactly. Now this is adapted from the Curious Kids Pupils book. It's number 5 in the series by Macmillan. And you've got these lovely curiosity corners in each module. And their curiosity corner is a blue whale louder or quieter than an aeroplane? Investigate. But we can extend this task by kind of flipping it and giving the students answers and letting them find out what the questions are. We could also do a couple of follow-on tasks, right? For example, students research the color blue and maybe they choose 3 facts that they think are the most interesting. They then write some short answers or show images to represent the answers and ask their partner to give the question, the flipping it that we just saw. Or they could share 2 facts and a myth about the color and their partner has to guess the myth. So I've got a question for you, C, and of course the participants as well. Do you think this task, all in all, promoted curiosity or creativity?
Definitely curiosity. Not sure about creativity, but definitely I was curious.
Okay, so it doesn't really promote creativity just yet, but it does get students curious, right? So what is curiosity? It's quite an ambiguous term, right?
Yeah, it's a good question, actually. And what I've got here are 4 different definitions of what curiosity is. Okay, but look, there are words that are covered up, Sarah.
Okay.
I think you need the participants' help to uncover that word, to guess that word, to find that word for me. So the first one is curiosity. It's the recognition that there is something that we want to know.
I think this one is unknown.
Super. Yes, of course. We have this unknown thing. We want to know all about it. Now, the second one is difficult. Okay, that needs to be resolved. Shall I give you a clue with the first one?
Yeah, please do.
I'll show it. Ambiguity.
Okay.
Or
uncertainty.
Super.
Something we're not sure about, right? Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Okay, the next one is something or pleasure from learning something new. Now, think about children when they learn something new and they're always curious about the world around them. What is it?
Excitement.
Yeah.
It's got to be excitement. Okay.
Absolutely. And desire to seek by asking questions.
This is information, right?
Yeah, the questions, curiosity and questions go together.
Yeah. All right. So when we think of children, you know, this is something that they seem to be born with. They're really curious about the world around them, forever asking questions, excited about learning more, right? So this is something that we really need to add into our lessons.
Absolutely. Now, unfortunately, Sarah, it's not all good news. There's a little problem. Okay. Giroux says children's curiosity diminishes as they move through formal education. and levels of expressed curiosity is virtually absent by the time students are around 10 years old. So this is in school, not necessarily at home. So in effect, we're actually educating curiosity out of our students. And that's not great news, is it?
No, it doesn't sound good, but I just want to know why this happens.
Yeah, I think this comes from us being sort of in a system that has right or wrong answers. Yeah, and this is the system that usually has a summative exam or assessment at the end of school. And so we're kind of teaching towards that a lot. I think students are not encouraged to question as much as they could be, but are asked questions instead. You know, teachers always asking questions that they know the answers to. And then Hoffenbeck says there's an acute lack of practical and accessible information for teachers as to how they can support each student to develop these skills in their everyday practice. So this links to a sort of lack of teacher education, teacher training.
This certainly wasn't present in any of my teacher training courses when I was training to be a teacher, how to get students curious and how to maintain their curiosity. So it's really interesting.
Same. But curiosity is important. Okay. Now, I'm going to give you a little challenge now, Sarah.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to give you some answers to one question. Okay. It's some information about the question. Okay. So I will read them out and then you have to guess what the question is. Okay.
Okay. Got it.
All right. So it increases attention, motivation, and engagement. It also increases persistence and self-determination. It improves concentration and encourages critical thinking. And it promotes better well-being and collaboration between peers. And children with higher levels of curiosity are more likely to explore, share their interests, and express excitement. And finally, it is the cornerstone of creative thinking. What do you think the question is?
I think it's something like, why should we, as educators, encourage curiosity in the classroom, something like this?
Yeah, brilliant. Why is it so important for teachers to encourage curiosity?
Right. Yeah. Okay, so we can see that it's really important, fundamental, that we ensure that we're encouraging curiosity in our classrooms. But how do we do it, right? This is the key question. How does it work in practice? And first of all, we need to think about our questioning, okay, or how we get students to ask questions. As you said earlier, C, we often ask the questions, whereas we should be encouraging students to ask us or their peers questions, okay? One thing we can do is introduce a wall of wonder. Now, this can be something that's physically displayed in the classroom. There could be a dedicated space for this if you teach face-to-face. If you teach online, you might decide to use, something like Jamboard or Padlet or something. And this is where you introduce the topic that you're teaching, anything that comes up in the course book or anything that you choose, and students write down all the questions that they have about this topic, right? And there's no such thing as a silly question. They can ask whatever they want and they display it on the wall. You can see here that I was teaching my students about whales, and this is what they came up with. Now, the thing is, we've also got to help our students ask good questions or understand what a good question looks like. And to do this, we can introduce something called a question continuum to help them out. So you can see on the vertical axis, we have complexity. How difficult is that question to answer? Or does it require more complex thought? So we can see that the question, are whales shy, is more complex to answer than what do whales eat, right? And then at the bottom, you've got the interest level. So we can see that how deep can whales swim is more interesting to our students than what do whales eat. Okay, and the question that's the most complex and the most interesting, and where maybe students can spend their time, is this one: do whales have different accents? So students then go off to investigate. Now, questioning doesn't end there. We can also encourage students to flip it. In other words, they give the answer, or we give the answer, and they provide the question, just like you did with me earlier. We can also get them to practice reversal thinking. For example, instead of asking our students, do you believe in ghosts? You'd ask, do ghosts believe in us? Or do dogs walk us, or do we walk dogs? Or instead of how can we make an argument better or solve an argument, how can we make an argument worse? Or how can we be slower at learning new words instead of how can we learn new words more easily? And part of this is fun and silly, but also requires curiosity, right? It really makes you think.
Yeah.
Now, the other type of question we can introduce to our students is something called funks. Now, funks are questions that don't really have an answer. They're ambiguous. They're kind of weird. For example, what color is Thursday? See, how would you answer this?
Ooh, I'd say orange.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's blue, you see. So this gets students comfortable in ambiguity, but also quite curious about their partner's answers as well.
Yeah, I bet that causes a lot of conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Why you think it's blue? Yeah.
Exactly. So our session today is about curiosity and creative thinking, creativity as well, okay? And we've talked a lot about curiosity, but what about creativity? I've made my own wonder wall about the topic curiosity, and I was hoping you could help me answer the questions that I have.
Okay, I can try. Yep.
All right, so a question that I have about creativity is, well, is everyone capable of it? Everyone? Or is it sort of artists, musicians? What would you say?
It's a good question. I mean, like the short answer is everyone capable of creative thinking? Yes, absolutely. And I think this links to artists and musicians, because I think when we think of creative people or creativity in general, we tend to think of great artists or musicians, kind of genius and really artistic talents going on. And we think of maybe the end product like a beautiful painting or a spectacular dance or a beautiful poem, when actually we're thinking about real talent and a product instead of perhaps the process involved in that. So myself as an artist, for example, the creative thinking is not in the final product, but the process of actually doing that.
Got it. So in that case, if it's a process, then it can be taught, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if we move away from artists as well, we think about a mechanic with my like banged up kind of secondhand car going to my mechanic. He has to have creative thinking skills in order to fix my car. And equally, you know, us in education, teachers stretching a paycheck to the end of the month, we've got to be quite creative with our finances to get there, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's absolutely a skill that we can teach in the classroom.
Okay, so it's not to do with kind of spontaneity or being a sort of genius of sorts. We're all capable of it, right? Okay, so I also want to know whether you think it's best to work alone on a creative project or whether we should collaborate. What do you think about this one?
Definitely involves lots of collaboration. I mean, it's about bouncing ideas to and from each other, isn't it? We have better a process when we do that. We do that at Eltonics all the time. And Guy Claxton reminds us that every very creative person has at least one other person in their life who doesn't think they're mad. You know, there's someone always there kind of like bouncing ideas off. So yeah, definitely collaboration.
Okay, and the last question I have is kind of, you know, how I used to think as a student, but how my students also think as well. And it's, why can't I think of anything when my teacher says, you know, draw a picture, write a poem, make a poster? I just go blank. I freeze up a bit. Why is that?
Yeah, we do this a lot. And again, it's like that kind of misconception of creativity that we just put a pencil or a pen or a paintbrush in a child's hand and that's creative. but actually, you know, it's not about freedom and spontaneity all the time, or a blank canvas. That can be a little bit confronting. And where do you start? Where's the creative process in that? We're not really developing that or fostering that just by saying draw or write. So what we need to do is give creative constraints, and we'll look at this in a second later in the session, where students then have a kind of puzzle to solve, and in doing that they're thinking creatively.
Okay, so it's not about absolute freedom or a blank canvas, it's about giving certain constraints. Okay, so I also want to know then, if creative thinking is a process, what do creative thinking skills look like in practice?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we need to sort of think about what creative thinkers do. And, you know, first of all, it's looking for many possible answers, not just one. And there isn't an answer. You know, you're finding an answer. And it's allowing ourselves to make wild and crazy suggestions and being okay with that, having a brave and safe space to be able to do that in the classroom too. Not judging ideas early on in the process. So kind of, you know, not to go, oh no, that's silly, and move it to the side. Just kind of keep playing with it, daydream, doodle. And then making lots and lots of suggestions that are workable and silly, or seemingly so at the beginning. Making mistakes is a huge part of creative thinking, and then learning from what didn't work as well as what did.
Okay.
So the big question is, how do we help develop creative thinkers? And we've actually spent the first half of this session looking at curiosity, and that being a massive cornerstone of creativity, having or fostering this sense of wonder and curiosity. And we looked at different ways we can do that with questioning. There are other two elements as well that we can do, which is encourage students to observe in detail the world around us. And as I just said before, applying certain constraints within tasks. So encouraging students to observe, how can we do that, Sarah?
Well, observation is interesting because, you know, Da Vinci, who's one of the most creative thinkers of all time, did this all the time in his notebooks. If you've got a chance, and you can Google Da Vinci's notebooks, they're really illuminating. And what he was doing was looking at what was in front of him, but not just looking at the world as it is, but imagining other possibilities. And we can try and get our young learners to look at things in slightly different ways, okay? And this can be things that we can adapt from a course book as well. So I'm going to show you something, all right? Now, I opened my course book, Curious Kids Pupils 5 book, and we've got this grammar point, okay? And this is something that, of course, we would do in the classroom with our students. We're teaching them comparatives. We're talking about wild animals, and maybe they've practiced the grammar and done a little bit of language work already. So where can we go then to encourage them to observe? Okay. So here are my animals. Where do you think they live? See, what about the hippo?
Okay, let's get the participants involved. The hippo, number 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. I reckon it's either 1 or 4. We've got river. Okay, let's go with 4.
Lovely, good. What about the rhino?
The rhino, what do we think? Number 1.
Lovely. Okay, this one's difficult. Penguin.
It's either 2 or 3, isn't it? I'm going to go for 2. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got the Antarctica there. Parrot.
Parrot's Tropicana. It's got to be the old palm tree there. Yeah.
Absolutely. 5. So then the polar bear in the Arctic is here, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And these are the habitats. And of course, you can ask your students some follow-up questions, you know, which animals live in a hotter or colder climate to practice that grammar point. Okay.
Yeah.
But all right, let's really observe these habitats where these animals live. All right. So see, choose a habitat, but don't tell me which one it is. Okay.
Okay.
And I want you to think about the sounds that you would hear if you were there. Okay.
Okay.
And you're going to tell me what sounds that you hear, but don't say what makes the sound. Actually tell me the sound. Okay, we're going to guess where you are.
Okay. All right. Crack, crunch, crunch, crunch.
Okay, that's got to be number 2, right?
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay. Now, this is mine. I want you to read it out, okay? And then tell me where you think I am.
Tweet, tweet, tweet. Roar.
Where am I?
Okay, I reckon it's number 1, the savannah.
Absolutely. Yes, I am. I'm in the grasslands in the savannah. Okay. And here are some that my students wrote. Okay. They chose a habitat. They really thought about the sounds that they could hear. They didn't write what made the sounds, but they tried to write the sound itself, an onomatopoeic poem, right? And then their partner had to guess where they are. Now, of course, here they're observing the scene, but they're not just looking at the visuals. They're thinking about other senses that might come into play as well. You could also explore touch. What kind of textures might you feel? And this is getting students to observe something in a slightly different way to what we normally do, right?
Yeah.
And then some follow-on tasks that we could do is that students write an onomatopoeic poem for where they live. And then their partner could guess, you know, is it the city? Is it the countryside? What do they have in their bedroom? This kind of stuff. Or students could even build the habitat of their choice out of the materials that they have available.
I kind of want to do that now. That's brilliant.
Please don't. We've got to finish this.
Okay, so that's encouraging students to observe.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at how we can apply certain constraints within tasks to foster creative thinking. So there are 2 ways that we can do this. We can apply content constraints. So this might be providing prompts for students to work on. It could be questions, particular questions for students to answer. It could be inspiration for the students to write about or respond to, including images, and including a problem-solving element as well. And then, excuse me, we have structural constraints as well. So this could be something like how many words to use in a sentence or a paragraph, and it could be syllable counting as well, like you'd find in a haiku poem, for example. Okay. So let's take a look at this opportunity to adapt our course book. So Sarah, you had one with your little grammar point and what you could do after that. This is what we can do after some text work. So we have a text here, it's called Save Our Animals, and it's about snow leopard, orangutans and blue whales, and how they're vulnerable and endangered. And it's very factual, and underneath this text here, we have some typical kind of comprehension questions that will help the students understand the content of that text. And then perhaps typically we might move on to some post-text activity like draw an endangered animal, you know, say why it's endangered, or for example, make a poster campaign to help endangered animals, etc. But we're kind of walking down into that pathway of kind of draw a picture or make a poster. And
too much freedom.
Yeah, exactly. And so we need those constraints to really foster this creative thinking, because again, it's not about just the product, it's also the process, or very much about the process. And this is a great technique for exploring this further in class with these kind of make a poster, make images, okay? It's called bending, breaking and blending, and these are our constraints. Okay, so let me explain what bending is. So bending is when we have an original thing. It could be an object or an image, and we sort of twist it out of shape. So we play with the size and the shape of it. This is Slinkerchu, who's a great street artist. He does this. He's got little tiny little figures on installations in the street. Then we have breaking. This is when something whole is taken apart and then kind of assembled with its fragments back into place or in different places. Of course, you know, Cubism, Picasso is a great example of this. And then finally, blending. This is when we have 2 or more sources, and it could be images as well, and we blend them in novel ways, just like Dali has here. But of course, as we said, we don't need to be genius artists like these guys we can see on the screen. We can actually get our students to take some of these bending, breaking, blending concepts to make now their awareness poster. So for example, I got my students to think about the orangutan, the blue whale, and the snow leopard. And from the text, they take something that has what basically their biggest danger, what makes them most vulnerable. So my students chose the fact that the deforestation and the digger is really, really decreasing their habitat. So they played with this idea of an orangutan and a little toy digger. And of course, this has much more impact. They're bending it, they're bending the shapes, playing with the size of these things. It has great impact. Equally with the blue whale here, he's pink here for some reason, but the students thought that plastic pollution was the biggest threat to blue whale. So they started to bend and play and blend with these plastic. What happens when the whale is small? Let's put the whale in the bag. And of course, it comes up with this beautiful image. Equally, we can break. So this is when we've got fragments. So we take one bit from one and one bit from the other. This is about the snow leopard and the fact that it's being, it's danger is the poaching of snow leopards. And so we've got this fragment of the paw and the gun, and we put that together and look at this impactful image. And so the students, we've given the students a new way of expressing themselves visually by using these constraints. And ultimately, we've got a better product at the end of it as well. As a follow-on task, the students could display their work around the classroom in a gallery format, and they visit each one and they can say what the animal is saying, like the orangutan and the blue whale had a little bubble. They can actually put what they're saying there, or they could just write the title underneath each animal. Equally, they could write an accompanying tweet or text written by their animal of choice, describing the threat to them. And this could have a structural constraint, for example, 10 words or less. And here's an example here. This is about the snow leopard. All right, so in this session, we have explored what curiosity and creativity are and how important they are, and some ideas of how we can put this into practice in our classrooms. If you want to know our wonderfully creative resources, here they are. And if you want to know more about creativity, or indeed what we do, or you want us to bring much more creativity in your educational settings, you can contact us. Thank you so much for your participation.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
Hello.
And
Hi.
there's Will.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi. Thank you so much. Once again, absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. So inspirational, I think. It takes me back to my childhood as well. It got me thinking about, how was I taught this? Did they even think, did teachers think this way? 60 years ago when I was in the classroom, do you know what I mean? Was this actually happening back then? Is this?
I don't think so.
No, it's not.
I don't think so. I mean, it was, when we started exploring what creativity particularly is, I realized I had a lot of misunderstandings about what it was.
Yeah.
And also had never, I don't think, been taught any creative thinking skills explicitly in the classroom. And, it's not just for the English language classroom, it's multidisciplinary, it can appear anywhere. And of course, it's so important for life outside the classroom as well, right? And it's something that I think we're maybe a bit scared of because we think that we're not creative, but now we know that it's within all of us, right?
Yeah. We've got to make, and it's actually, we're talking to the people that are in this room. It's I believe it's a responsibility of a teacher to do what they can to make sure they don't educate them out of. I kept thinking of Ken Robinson when you were saying that. Ken Robinson's amazing
Yes.
talk about educating kids out of their creativity, and it's the job of a teacher, isn't it, to make sure that we don't fall into that trap. Although it's difficult sometimes, isn't it? I think people are so constrained by
I was going to
the black and
say,
white investments down the road that
I think we do put a bit too much on the shoulders of teachers. I think it is a bigger system. There are lots of ministries of education and that are working now towards putting more creative thinking skills into the curriculum around the world, because it is so important for employers to have this strength, this skill. And I think we tend to put it all on teachers' shoulders when perhaps we need to look at the bigger picture as well. I think teacher training courses need to have this a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. And we need to remember also it's very inclusive. I mean, it's something that all children can achieve in different ways, no matter what they have going on, or no matter what their English language level is, and all of that kind of stuff. It's achievable by all, even though the results will be very different, and that's kind of the nice part about it as well.
Absolutely. Another person came to mind while you were talking, actually. So Ken Robinson, for sure. I mean, I was just in love with that guy, just everything he did for the world. But also, I don't know why, but Lin-Manuel Miranda kept coming up in my head. Do you know him?
No,
I don't.
I don't know. Like he comes to mind as a really, really genuinely knows how to be creative guy. Lin-Manuel Miranda writes music he wrote Hamilton, the musical. He wrote Moana songs. He writes lots of Disney music. He's done loads of stuff, and he talked a lot about creativity and how his best themes come to his head when he's doing the dishes and stuff like that. Just some of the things you were saying were ringing with some of the things that he teaches about creativity as well.
Interesting. That's a great resource.
You can get into sort of neuro kind of. There's the science of creativity as well, and they talk about that aha moment. There's a process, and that's the sort of thinking skills that we can foster in the classroom. But there is that sort of aha moment, and it might happen. I don't know if it happens to you, but it happens to me, like in the middle of the night.
I
wake up and go, oh, that's a brilliant.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, all right. I think we need to start moving on with our chin wagging.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you,
Claire and Sarah and C, for putting that together. An amazing talk. And yeah, so thank you very much. We'll see you later. So thanks for coming, Anna. So just give me 1 minute. I'm going to I've just got a few other things to say before I hand over to you. So firstly, I'm going to put up in a second, I'll be putting up a poll for anyone watching on Zoom. I'll be putting up a poll, and this is basically, we'd like you to choose, where are we? Yeah, here we go. Wait a second, so you can see that there. We'd like you to choose. I'm going to share my screen so you can see a bit more clearly about what we're doing here. We've got several goodie bags we want to share. Each goodie bag has sort of got some free stuff in there, some teaching resources for you, and materials. So we'd like you, if you don't mind, just to choose which one you would like of those three. So looking at the three talks we're doing today, you've just seen C and Sarah talk on Anna talk about multiliteracies, and we're finishing with Marcella Sintra talking about empathy and confidence, so SEL in the classroom as well. So of those three, which goodie bag would you like to receive? I'll give you a minute just to make that choice. In the meantime, while you are choosing, I'm going to tell you about this. You saw a few times in that talk, Sarah and C bring up a course. You might not know this course. It is a new course from Macmillan Education. It's a new Young Learners course, and it's literally being launched now. This is probably the first time you've heard of it. Maybe not. You might have heard it. There's a couple of other things you might have seen, but we are launching this course today. Curious Kids is a new course from Macmillan Education, which looks at, of course, language learning. It is an English language learning course. However, interwoven throughout the entire course, it drives curiosity through creativity with fueling motivation, with critical thinking and problem-solving skills. It also empowers learners to approach learning with an open mind and foster innovative ideas. So very much talking about the things that C and Sarah were just talking to you about just now. It's all interwoven into Curious Kids. Of course, it looks at language skills through what you would expect: vocabulary, grammar. It's got the vehicles of song and video and dialogue and practicing communicative confidence, the things that you would expect from an English language course today, of course. But it's all done through the lens of creativity, because we believe that's what drives young people and that's what their lives should be full of. So have a look at the course, scan the QR code there if you're interested. You can get some free samples of the course if you want to try it out in your lessons or sort of flick through it a bit. Anyway, that's the new course. I hope you like it. Have a little look now whenever you're ready. I'm going to end that poll. Alrighty. Anna Parr. Hello, Anna Parr. Are you there?
Hi. Yes, that's me.
I can hear you. There you go. Hello. How are you feeling? Big day, huh?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. So you are a lecturer in TEFL, teacher, and you're a teacher trainer. You're a course book author, a PhD in linguistics. Why did you go down this route, Anna? Can I ask you originally? Why did you go down the route of linguistics? What happened?
Well, that is actually
what inspired you to do that in your life?
A different faculty of studies inspired me, because I went on my Erasmus experience to England, but not to study English, but to study educational psychology. And that made me interested in teaching in general. So yeah, when I came back, I decided to focus on that. And I also did my MA in pedagogy. So I sort of try to match those two fields and take the best of both of them.
Yeah, no, great. Well, I mean, I saw this talk earlier and it shines through. Your experience shines through, Anna. With this talk is really interesting, which I think is really important for the teachers. So thanks for putting it together. I'm going to leave you to it. Have a lovely session, everyone. I'll see you in about half an hour.
Okay. I'll try to share my screen with you. I hope it works. It did work the previous time, so maybe it will work this time as well. Let me try it. Okay, sound. Okay. So first of all, hello everyone. My name is Edda and I'm a teacher. So just like you, every day, little by little, I'm trying to change the world, because that's what teachers do. And today we are talking about multiliteracies. So it would make sense to decide what literacy is and how it is perceived traditionally. Okay, so traditionally we are thinking of literacy as the ability to read and write in a language. But the ability to read and write in a language, even in a foreign language or a second language, even in English, is not that complicated at the level of the mechanics, which I'm going to show you, I hope, with the task that I would like us all to do. So I'm going to show you a text that will define the notion of the bathtub effect, okay? And I will give you like 3 seconds to have a look at the text, and then we'll read it out loud together. So I hope you'll play with me, just to show you what a wonderful organ the brain is and how it allows us to understand a text, even if at the level of mechanics, obviously, of the reading, even if it's not perfect, okay? So if you're ready, let's read that. Okay, it takes the brain a little while to get used to it, but actually I'm sure that all of you are perfectly fine with reading the text. The title of the text is The Phenomenal Power of the Human Brain, and it goes according to research at Cambridge University. It doesn't matter in what order the letters in a word are. The only important thing is that the first and the last letter be in the right place, right? So this very much explains the term the bathtub effect. So if the head and the feet are visible, the rest will be compensated by the brain. Unless you are dyslexic, then you will have a problem. But with the typical brain work at the level of basic understanding of a text, basic reading, basic mechanics of a text, the brain will do. It is also the reason why it is very difficult for a rater, a teacher checking writing an essay of a student, to see all the spelling errors, because the brain compensates for the errors and it's hard to see them. So I'm sure you've noticed that in your work. But yeah, so the idea is that literacy at the level of the mechanics of reading and writing is not so complicated, but this is not enough, especially nowadays, to understand the world around us. Okay, so simply being able to read something is not what we are actually looking for. So what we need, especially in today's world, is multiliteracy. So how do we define multiliteracy? Well, multiliteracy is the ability to identify and interpret, create and communicate meaning across a variety of visual, oral, corporal, musical and alphabetical forms of communication through a variety of media, including digital media, including the new media that our students, especially young learners, are very used to. And they are using the new media to gain their knowledge. They get their information a lot from visual media, from digital media. And so what they need to do is understand not only what the text stands for, not only the very superficial meaning, literal meaning of what the text says, but more importantly, what lies below. Okay, so the meaning that is hidden, the reading between lines, the things that the images stand for, rather than understanding and interpreting whatever they can see or read just on the surface. So there are multiple multiliteracies, but in the young learners, English as a foreign or as a second language classroom, we are focusing on developing and understanding and trying to involve our students in developing four major multiliteracies in young learners. A foreign language classroom would be the visual literacy, so sort of seeing the things and understanding what you see, which is not that obvious. Critical literacy, that requires reacting to what you see, reacting to what you read, right? So to images and to the texts. Information literacy, that is something even deeper, because it means interacting with the text, okay? Interacting with the visual information that you get. And finally, the social emotional literacy, that is essential for functioning properly in a society, in the world, not only in their classroom now, but in their future education and also at work, in life. Very important skill to understand socially and emotionally what you see and how you interpret people's behavior, people's intentions, also in texts. So we are going to start with visual literacy, which basically means what you can see beyond the picture, right? So the picture shows something and we can obviously describe the picture, but the important thing is what the picture stands for. Okay, and I will try to prove this point by giving you a short quiz. Okay, so you are going to see symbols of different services, products, companies. And what I would like you to do is to look at the symbols, and as fast as you can, write in the chat what the symbol stands for. Okay, so we'll see how it works. I'm going to open the chat so that I can see it. Okay, and yeah, So we are starting. So the first symbol that I can show you here is this. What does it stand for? What does it mean to you? Do you know the symbol? Is that something that you can understand? Oh yes, food. McDonald's, burger, right? Lovely. Junk food. Okay, that was already with judgment. Okay, how about this one? Facebook, very good. Social media, lovely. Okay, so yeah, so this is a communication as well. Lovely. Okay, how about this one? That's a difficult one. Let's see if you can do it. Pepsi, Pepsi it is. Interesting that someone's association of this symbol is cola. Okay, how about this one? I'm not sure whether you can see it if I do that. Instagram, yes, that's Instagram. Insta, lovely. Everybody knows that. How about this one? Windows. Oh, okay, that was very fast. You're really good. And this one? Starbucks coffee. Yeah, it stands for me. It stands for coffee, but it doesn't have to, right? It's different. There are different things that. Okay. How about this one? Nike. Yay! That's Nike. Very nice. Just you are very, very fast. Okay, thank you. Well, the idea is that we are not born with this knowledge. Okay, this is something that you gain through experience. Okay, and there is something powerful in the image, right? In a symbol that the company came up with a symbol, a logo. And now you look at the logo and you instantly not only know and recognize the company, but you also have different associations. And those associations can vary between people, right? You can have your own personal associations. You can associate it negatively or positively, right? So there is a lot of information beyond the picture, okay? And it's just a symbol. Somebody came up with a symbol, and the symbol is typically quite a simple one, like Nike, for example. And yet it conveys so much information, okay? Now, this is what we need to teach our students, to make them aware that a tiny little symbol or a short, simple sentence may convey much more information that it appears to convey, okay? So how do we teach that? How do we develop visual literacy in children? Well, if you've got a text and the text is accompanied by pictures, you may start with talking about the pictures before reading the text. So we are looking at these pictures, for example, and we're asking students general questions before reading questions, pre-reading questions, like what characters are presented in the story, which is a simple question. You can look at the pictures and you can name the characters. You can ask them where the story is set, okay? Also, judging by the pictures, they can do that. But you can also ask less obvious questions, like what season is it, okay? And how do you know? How do you justify? What in these pictures tells you that this is autumn, okay? What time of a day is it, and how do you know, right? So observe the pictures in more detail, okay? Be more sensitive to what you see. Okay, don't just go through those pictures and analyze what you can see. What kind of text is it? Okay, so you're looking at the text now, but not reading it, just looking at it quickly and say, what kind of text is it? Is it a poem? Is it a story? Is it a play? How do you know? Well, you know because different texts are structured differently, and it would make sense to understand that there is a visual difference between the texts. And this question I like best because it's least obvious, okay? So he asks us the question, is the story real or imaginary? How do you know? Okay, so you look at the pictures and you see that, well, the characters seem to talk to each other and they walk on two. So it's probably something imaginary rather than real. Now, the ability to discern between real and imaginary in texts or in visuals is essential for the students to learn from very early on, because it makes a world of a difference when in the future adults look at a text, and if they cannot discern between the reality, whether the text is real or imaginary, then they are prone to manipulation. Then the text authors or the visuals authors may easily manipulate such a person who is not sure whether what they see is real or not. Okay, so it makes sense to start early on to teach children that. Okay, now this brings us to critical literacy. Okay, so reading between the lines. Okay, so trying to look whether what we see is the whole story, or is there something beyond what we can see. Now, my favorite card game that you probably are also using is Dixit. Okay, Dixit cards are paintings, artworks that are super ambiguous. Okay, that's why it makes it interesting to critically analyze them. Even with the younger students, we play those cards. Now, with the younger students, the general rule of the game is quite complicated, and we don't often play it, and I don't find it very useful as a general rule of Dixit game to play in a language class. So I've got my own variations. One of them is three with a common theme. So I give my students the cards face down, and they have to draw 3. And whichever 3 they draw, they need to find one common theme. Okay, so they are randomly selected 3 cards, but you have to find a common theme. And they are so ambiguous that there is no chance that that they can't find a common theme. So for example, for these 3, this is a real example. I played with my students, and they took those 3, and they said that the common theme between those 3 is a dream. Okay, and then they had to explain to me how they see that this is a dream in each of those cards. The opposite situation is when you give them a lot of cards, okay, face up, and they can choose on their own 3 of those cards, and then they make a set and they explain why they think those 3 cards match in any way. If you are working with a little bit older students, more advanced, you can tell them to choose 3 Dixit cards and write a paragraph. Okay, so maybe it's a story, maybe those 3 cards make a story, or maybe this is something more sensitive, right? They could write a poem on that, or they could write just a paragraph explaining the emotions that they have while looking at the pictures. You can find Dixit online. There are a lot of cards available, but if you want to make your own, which I highly recommend, I'm a big fan of artificial intelligence driven tools. My favorite for making paintings, photos is Midjourney. If you've ever used Discord as a communicator, Midjourney is an addition to that, but you can easily download it as a single application. It's free, and you just have to describe nicely what you want to have in a photo or in a painting, and it will be produced in a matter of seconds, and you can use it in the classroom. If you're not a fan of artificial intelligence driven devices, driven applications, Board Panda is the place where you can go. Now this is a web page. Again, everything is for free, and here artists upload their artwork, and if you type thought-provoking pictures, you will get such that will give you some ambiguity, and the students will have something to talk about, like for example this one here. So at the level of pictures, that would be that, but you can of course also react to a written text. Okay, so whenever you've got some written text, it makes perfect sense, and I cannot emphasize it enough. Asking students to identify in a text where the writer gives an opinion and where he just quotes facts. Okay, again, very important to guard students against manipulation, right? So that they understand what a fact is and what an opinion is. A little bit pushing it a little bit further, thinking about whether they agree or disagree with whatever opinion is presented in the text. And this is also very important for me, because I meet students at the university level even, with whom it is difficult to establish what they believe in, because everything is somewhere in the middle. Okay, so they play safe, And whenever you ask them a controversial question and you just ask them whether they agree or disagree, they go somewhere, it depends, right? So yeah, some people think this, some people think that. Of course, they should know that there are two sides. They should respect and understand that people can have different opinions. But I am encouraging my students to take a stand always. Okay, whatever the topic is, whatever the issue is, take a stand, because you should have an opinion. Okay, because if you don't, then you've got those ridiculous situations when there is like a question, I don't know, are you pregnant? It depends, right? So yeah, you need to take a stand, and you should have an opinion, develop an opinion. And if you think about it, perhaps English is the first place where they came and they were asked this particular question. They have never thought about this question before. And you are the first people that have ever asked them this question, and you are responsible for them thinking about it and forming an opinion for the first time, which is absolutely a beautiful and a process to observe in the classroom. Yeah, and whether they agree or disagree with, and however they feel about the topic, do they feel strongly about it or not so much, or they don't care much? Even if they don't care much, I make them have an opinion because it matters, it's important. Also, it makes sense to make the students understand that texts are written for some purpose. Nobody writes text just because. Every text, every functional text has an aim, and understanding what the text wants to do to the reader is also very important, again, for the reasons of manipulation, right? So they need to understand whether a given text wants to persuade them to do something, or just help them, or just describe something. So this ability, I believe, also should be developed very early on, okay? Another AI tool that I like that helps with making such activities is Twee. There are a lot of functionalities, so if you've never tried, go to the webpage and try it out, because it's absolutely fantastic. It generates advantages and disadvantages to whatever topic you give them. It can generate famous quotes on a given topic. My favorite, it generates 4 opinions of random people that you can agree or disagree with, forming your own opinion. And also it works with videos from YouTube. So you just upload a link to a YouTube video that you want to use in a classroom, and it will generate 3 summaries. And it's great because those summaries, out of these summaries, only 1 is the correct one. And the remaining 2 are in certain ways incorrect. But those summaries are not wildly different. They are very, very similar, and you have to read carefully and watch carefully in order to decide which one actually summarizes the film. Okay, information literacy is going 1 step further, because now we are looking not at reacting to text, but interacting with the text. So interaction with the text is something that every reader does, but when you are teaching English as a foreign language, you don't always emphasize that in the classroom, because we are focusing on other aspects. And yet, once we've covered the reading, once we've asked all those typical reading comprehension questions, we can push it a little bit further so that the students can play with the text, interact with the text. In this example, we've got children describing their experiences of different activities that they did during holiday. And the task is to match those activities with other students, with other children who are quoted in the task. Okay, so if someone says, I like animals, which activity would you recommend from the reading, would you recommend to this particular person, which pushes it a little bit further and makes children think more, okay, think more profoundly, analyze a little bit more. Also, information literacy means the ability to find information. Now, because we think of the new generation as digital natives, we think that everything for them is simple and they are naturals and they can do everything in the computer, but that's not really true. right? They can do some things that they are used to doing, but once you ask them, I don't know, check on the internet whether we will need an umbrella tomorrow, it is not so easy because they are not that skilled to come up with a good question. Okay, now once GPT chat was launched, you could see that clearly, because GPT chat will produce very good answers, but only if you ask a very good question. Okay, and it's difficult for them to form the question. So everything that will help them develop the ability to ask good questions, to gain information they need, is also a skill worth developing. Information literacy is also about digital literacy, so the ability to interact with the information on the screen. Okay, so all the activities that are games, gamification of the activities from the course book, for example, where the students match the labels with pictures, put stories in a line of events. All those activities develop their information literacy. That is very important for them manually and cognitively. And yeah, so if you create activities like that online, you ask the students to do those activities online, that will develop their ability to understand information, manipulate information on screen. If the course book has got a lot of material, a lot of games that are matched to the units that you are covering, you are also revising their vocabulary and their grammar at the same time as developing information literacy skills. One of my favorite activities that requires no course book whatsoever to develop information literacy is texting. So this is something they naturally do. So I tell them, I would like you to text me, but the text message cannot be longer than 30 words. So you have to make it concise. And I always do this activity when we are talking about past tenses or we are telling stories. And I tell them, okay, so write to me a text message that you are going to be late for dinner. It starts always like that. Okay, you'll be late for dinner because you are witnessing an event that is a famous historical event, but you have to describe it in such a way that I have to guess what event you are witnessing. Okay, so again, I've got a real life example from my class where the students wrote the text, and I'm going to show it to you. I'll read it out to you, and I would like you to guess what historical event is being described. Okay, and write it in the chat. Okay, so again, I'll just flash the chat out here. Okay, let's try that. I'll be late for dinner. There are many people at the port. It's chaos. Some new ship sank on the way to America. They say it hit an iceberg. What is that? Yay, that is the disaster of the Titanic. Okay, we had that. Okay, although the Tea Party I liked as well, it was there in the previous session. Yeah, there could be. Okay, but the students meant the sinking of Titanic. But there were different other historical events happening here. And the students were describing them in those 30 words. It's challenging because it's short and you have to come up with this idea. And it should be like cleverly put in words. Okay, different perspectives. This is an activity in which I tell my students to rewrite a story or rewrite a text from a different perspective. So for example, if we are reading Little Red Riding Hood, it is written from the perspective of a narrator or from the perspective of the Little Red Riding Hood. But what about the perspective of grandma or the wolf or the hunter? Okay, so they have their own perspective. You can write the story from their point of view, like first person narrative, okay, of the wolf or of the grandma. We always have fun doing this activity and children like that, okay? And it also makes them understand the story better and analyze the information that the text gives because they're looking from a different perspective. The worst I found out in years of experience that children prefer to write something that is bad than something that is good. So if you ask them, write about your dream holiday or dream house, that's boring, but of a nightmare holiday and a nightmare house, that's fantastic. Okay, and then they will do it better. So if you've got problems with students who don't want to write something that is nice and beautiful, try the bad way. Okay, so everything that is ugly and bad would be more interesting and challenging for them. And the last type of literacy to develop in a young learner's classroom would be the social emotional literacy. So the ability to understand myself and how I interact with other people and how those interactions in the classroom and outside the classroom work. So starting with the youngest learners, the sub-skills of the social emotional literacy would encompass identifying emotions and impulse control. And then later on, they will go more into more advanced stages where they should develop empathy, relationship building, and ethical responsibility. So how do we do that? Well, if we think about identifying emotions or empathy or impulse control, the readings that you are giving the students in the classroom should have a model. Okay, they should not be just random stories of nothing. They should be engaged somehow socially, emotionally, so that the students can relate to the story or to the characters in the story. We can give them warm-ups, cool-downs, energizers. Okay, I'm going to show you one energizer that I am using, though I was quite skeptical about it. It worked wonders. Okay, it's more of a disciplinary tool for young learners, but it does work. Okay, so let's see this one. This one is an element of the wider theory of mindfulness in the classroom. Okay, and this particular mindfulness task is about focus. Okay, so let's see if you can focus well.
We're going to practice focusing our attention. We often have lots of thoughts in our head. Maybe we're thinking about food, or something someone said to us. Maybe we're worrying about something in the future, or something else. But it's good to learn to focus our attention. See if you can follow one ball. Choose one, red, yellow, green or blue. Keep focusing on just your ball. If you lose focus, take a breath and just come back to your ball. Keep watching. Great.
Okay, so I hope you followed. I was skeptical, I didn't think it would work, and it worked. And I was shocked because the young learners that I had, they were really young, and yet they followed. And for the next 5 minutes, I had like 100% focus. So it's a good idea to do an activity like that before something that you really think is important and they should learn and focus on. Okay, another element of developing, a way of developing social emotional literacy is projects with an impact and socially engaging discussions. Okay, so if you're thinking of projects, every now and then in a course book, there's a project to do. Well, the first rule of doing a project is do it in the classroom, not as homework, because the process is much more important than the product. Okay, and once you give it away as homework, you never know who helped them prepare the product, and then you only see the product. And what is important is the process. Okay, so the process of communicating, agreeing, disagreeing with each other. So this is what we're doing. It makes sense to give projects that are socially involved, that show the students global problems. In this particular case, this is the protection of sea creatures. Students are quite sensitive to the world and to protecting animals, to social issues, global issues. This is a good way of using their interests. Also, conversations. So working typically when you do a communicative task, you do it in pairs, which is good. But make sure that if you're doing an activity in pairs, it is a communicative activity. So it has an information gap. I don't know something, you know something, I want this information. So this is the real communication is going to happen. So for example, when you've got a scripted dialogue and students act out a scripted dialogue, there is no communication there. So you need to make sure that the communication is there. It has to be helped a little bit. So all the prompts are for that. And so we do that in pairs. But it makes sense also to, from the very early on, to make students used to talking in larger groups of 4, for example, because this sort of widens the ability to communicate with other people. And also, if you always talk to this one person that sits next to you, after a while, it will become less interesting because you will know everything about this person. So just talking to other people will make more sense. And as the last one is one of my favorite activities that develops social emotional literacy is the balloon game in whatever version. So you tell the students in the classroom that they are in a balloon and they are flying over the ocean, okay? And they have to choose for themselves either a useful profession each, or they need to find a famous actor, singer, artist that they like to represent, or they can be famous historical figures or famous inventors, whatever. And they're flying in a balloon, and you tell them, unfortunately, there is a hole in the balloon and the balloon is falling down, and they threw everything they could from the balloon, but the balloon is still falling down. So now the only way to survive is to throw somebody out. Okay, and now the communicative element of this task is when the person is nominated, the person doesn't want to go out, so they have to argue why his profession or this particular singer or his historical figure is very important. Because the rule is that if this person is thrown out of the balloon, the world will have to live without it. Okay, so if you are, for example, a famous inventor of a vacuum cleaner, and they throw you out, the world will have to live with a vacuum cleaner. And now both sides have to argue why this is unacceptable and why you can live without a vacuum cleaner. Okay, so that one is usually creating heated discussions. Okay, but it's also a lot of fun. So I highly recommend balloon games. So we have covered 4 basic and most doable and most important elements of multiliteracy, different multiliteracies in a young learner's classroom. And because you have had the focus mindfulness task, you probably focused well, so you probably remember all of those 4. I am checking your focus. What was the first multiliteracy that we looked at? Visual, lovely, and Lucia is the winner here. Okay, and what was the second one? Critical, very good, that's Megan. And the third one? Information. And the last one? So yeah, social emotional, very good. Now there is social emotional that is that Marcela is going to talk about. So I'm building a bridge between this one and Marcela's presentation. Social emotional is the last multiliteracy that we talked about. Now, if you have your classroom filled with students, do develop those 4 multiliteracies, because it's very important for the students to have those abilities, and additionally to learning the language, because learning the language itself is not enough. We need to develop also a wider scope of abilities to create a wider view, because at the end of the day, we don't teach English, we teach children. Thank you.
Look at all those emojis, Anna. It's a lot of emojis on the screen.
Lovely.
Thank you so much, Anna. What a talk. Really, really interesting. And just really, really sort of really ground level stuff. I think it's really important. I said it earlier, but I think it's really important that teachers can take these things away with them and start working with them. And just thank you for seeing it from their perspective. I really, really, really appreciate it. So we've got another poll to ask you. Daria, can you just put up the poll now? I'm going to sort of fast forward this bit a little bit so we can try and make up a bit of time because I started everything a bit late. So this is a poll from you, Anna, right? You sent over this poll as a question. So you might need to expand the box because the answers are quite long.
Yeah.
So you can, I hope you can expand the poll box or sort of seal the question. So the question is, which multi-literacy activity do you use most in your classroom? And you can only choose one, as I'm sure you'll see. So you've basically got visual, information, digital, social, emotional, and critical, as Anna's just been through, or none. 0% for none so far. It's similar to the earlier one because the results are sort of in the 40s for visual. That's what we had in our morning session today, where people were choosing that. So there's lots of visual literacy being taught. For example, as you've said, Anna, guessing with content of a text by the pictures. And then digital, playing interactive language games is becoming a staple for a lot of teachers, isn't it?
Right. Well, it has become more popular recently because the games have become more popular online and within the publishers' offer, and so the students are doing those in the classroom and also outside the classroom. So I would think that this would be the result.
For sure. Yeah. Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop that there. I'll share it so you can see. Why not? I haven't given everyone a chance to answer that, but just so you can see a bit of a snapshot. Those are the results. Okay. Thank you so much, Anna. I think, again, you can go and have a break now. That's it for your massive day. So it's time to have a little break for you, and we'll see you for the evening session. Thank you again, Anna.
Thank you, everybody.
See you soon. Okay. So let me share my screen. You'll be glad to know I've got some more things to share with you. I know you're super glad about that. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so Anna's already shared this with you, but this is another new course that we have launched this year about 10 seconds ago. This is a new course from Macmillan Education for young learners, an English language course. It's British English, and it's a primary course. That's not all. Learning Lands, as Anna has just shown you, has a complete multi-literacy skill syllabus, which helps pupils to engage with print and digital information, which I'm sure, as you're all here, you will agree that that's an important set of skills for students to learn. Imperative. So obviously the goal of this is to learn language. So it also fosters real communication by providing real world texts and context throughout the course, and to help young learners engaged in authentic communication. It's got loads of other stuff going on. So it's got a global citizenship strand to it as well, and also social emotional learning built within the course. So this is another new course, British English primary course for English language learning students. Take a look. QR code is right there. I think there's a link down below as well. You just click on that. If you're on Facebook and LinkedIn, just scan that QR code and it'll take you straight to the website where you can get a sample, explore the course in a bit more depth, get to know it, and see if it's something you might want to give a try. I just heard some shuffling papers just then. Right on time, Marcella.
That was just me.
I heard you before you. There we go. Is everything? Yeah, I've got everything shared properly. Good. Hello, Marcella. How are you?
Hello. Well, I'm good. I think I'm more awake now.
I'm sure you are. It's still not super duper civilized, is it? What time is it? Oh no, actually, it's not bad.
Oh no, it's 8:30. 8:30 in the morning. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's yeah,
much better than your-
civilized.
Yeah, you had a 3 a.m. I mean, you actually met us for the first time at 1:30, 1:40 this morning.
Yes, exactly.
And then
That was certainly.
yeah, 3 in the morning. Yeah, God, thank you again for doing that.
I thank
Okay,
you.
so Marcella, you're a teacher educator. This is taken from the bio that you gave us. So you've written yourself as being a teacher educator.
Yes, that's right.
Why have you done that?
Why? Sorry.
Why have you done that? Why did you go into that? So you've got
Why?
you're a teacher.
Because I'm
you teach English,
super. Yeah,
you love teaching, I'm sure.
exactly.
That's another direction, isn't it? That's a tangent. What
I
happened?
think it's
Why did you do
clear,
that?
right? What happened is more positive than anything else. I was just looking for a way of working more, adding more work, more responsibility, more accountability on my shoulders, and working with teachers seems to be the way to go, and impacting more learners, spreading the passion for education a bit more through teachers to other learners. So maybe not a direct impact, but still a lot of impact that we can together build with the other teachers. That's why, but I still have some contact with learners.
And what can you tell us about that? What contact do you have with learners?
Yeah, I've got some private students, and here in Canada, I'm working at a school, so I do teach groups and meet at least 50 learners every week that I work with.
Not individually.
That was not individually, no. Those as groups. Yeah.
Cool. Good stuff. Thanks, Marcella.
That's good.
Okay, so I think now is a good time. Whoa, stop sharing. Oh no. There we go. I'm gonna hand over to you. Have a great session, Marcella. See you later, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. It's great to be here with you all. Lots of people and some familiar names, very few familiar names, but still some familiar names, and definitely more familiar countries at this time, because probably it was too early for the previous session, and it was very good for the other people on the other side of the world. So we are shifting time zones here throughout the day, which is great and amazing. I thank you all for staying with me for the last session, because I can only imagine how brave a teacher you all are, because I mean, 3 webinars in a row, and they're all different webinars, but still on the same topic, general topic of teaching young learners and making a difference, like Anna said, in the world. And I'm super grateful that Anna established a clear link to the session we'll be doing now and what we will be talking about. Thank you, all the countries that are greeting me, Ukraine, Raisa. That was very, very good to see you all around. And I hope you have fun and send your questions in the Q&A session if you have any throughout the session, or even before or after you have my email. I said in the previous session that I was going to ramble a lot. Bear with me. I'll try not to ramble as much, because now I'm a little bit more awake, so I might even see my notes at this time. Anyways, we'll be talking about empathy and confidence in the young learners classroom. And some of the things that we will be discussing are the exact topics of emotions, empathy, communication, confident communication, that is very related to the language teaching, but also I will add a bibliography for those of you who are very curious, and I'm hoping everyone is, because that's part of our role, right? Keep learning and keep moving. So a little bit of the context that ignites the research, and the context that actually gives me insight for the things we're going to discuss here. first thing we have to say is that we're going to talk about children learning English. However, most of the things that we are going to see and talk about, even though it's a very quick webinar, they also relate, they may relate to teenagers and adults. We were talking earlier about the differences in generations and everything. And because some of us didn't have the opportunity to learn earlier, we might believe that it's too late, or might believe that shouldn't be taught at all, things like that. But in my opinion, even if we didn't have chances as young learners to develop social emotional skills in the classroom, why not try and teach ourselves? So this is also very, very important for us in the context here. Okay, and the examples are drawn from children learning English and materials for children. I am a firm believer in the power of education, and I believe everyone watching now is also a dreamer in that sense. Otherwise, you wouldn't be online at whatever time it is in your country at the moment, watching a webinar instead of a Netflix series or any other thing that might catch our attention, right? This is our focus because we want to be better educators. And the power of education, I really want to say something about the power of education that I draw not only from research, but also from experience. Yesterday, as I was teaching this Delta session, one of the teacher students said, "But Marcela, don't you think that we can focus on the language, the grammar, the vocabulary, pronunciation, for that matter, and discourse, because every other skill can be learned just as we go naturally. They are going to develop that. They're going to develop social emotional learning." And my answer to that is, yeah, partially going to develop, but they're going to develop randomly, perhaps not as much as they could. And the education is here, pure Vygotsky, to actually stretch this learning zone so that we can achieve higher. And it also goes for social emotional learning skills, all the skills that we talked about today in the other webinars. With education, if we are doing our jobs properly, for lack of a better word, we are actually engaging students into reaching more and being more active in their learning. Whereas if they are left to their own instincts or development on their own, they might not achieve that much, or they might not learn explicitly, or they might not be aware of certain things that need a bit of direction or a bit of support, a bit of help. And this is, for me, the superpower of education. In that sense, teachers are definitely core to the process of education or the development of children, even though there's a lot that they can learn from one another. The teacher that plans, prepares, and manages, facilitates the process is definitely going to be super help and going to help these children develop into greater human beings that are going to transform the world, as we mentioned earlier, right? But I have a very important message for you. I'm super optimistic, as you might have noticed, but the optimism is not blind. And I can see the challenges, and I can see that there is a lot of pressure from society, from parents, from the school board, and everyone else who's not in the classroom, right? The suggestion here is that we look at the challenges as possibilities, as obstacles that we can overcome together, as a group of professionals, not on our own as each teacher individually, but as a group like we're doing here, 500 of us thinking of possibilities for the world that might change the world. And a very brief reminder from my fellow Brazilian, whoever teaches learns in the act of teaching, and whoever learns teaches in the act of learning, meaning we teachers truly need to go to the classroom with an open heart, an open mind, to know that we're going to bring lots of learning to those students, but they're also going to teach us a lot about their own world, the differences. They're going to ask questions to which we probably know no answer to, and we're going to learn as well, okay? So I do hope we keep this in mind, not only during the webinar, but when we are teaching. And if you think differently, please let me know in the chat or in the questions, okay? Now, let's talk a little bit about emotions or their importance. Why do we talk about emotions, right? We talk about emotions and social and emotional skills and learning, because children who develop those skills earlier are better equipped to cope with everyday challenges later on in life, not only academic, dealing with frustrations with their learning, stretching to learning needs accommodation of new knowledge, meaning it needs to break patterns that you're used to or the comfort zone going beyond. So academically, they would perform better if they're more prepared to deal with their own emotions, reactions, and socially as well, interacting with others, first with themselves, being more understanding and aware of their own reactions, and then others in turn, and society, and so on and so forth. So socio-emotional driven curriculum might help them steer in a very, very changed society. Yeah. They also communicate better as they develop deeper understanding about their reactions and other people's reactions as well, not only our own reactions, but how they notice the world and how they can develop this empathy we're going to talk about, to perhaps not get into a discussion at that moment. Maybe the other person's not ready. So yes, we should try and understand that this is going to prepare them for be better communicators. They are going to manage decision-making, problem-solving, not only in school, in a very creative manner, because they reflect more critically, more collaboratively in different situations to produce different outcomes, something that we cannot predict. I think this is the biggest challenge for us teachers, because when dealing with social emotional skills in the classroom and allowing for problem solving, creative problem solving, collaboration, development of empathetic behavior, and the learning to deal with emotions, we do not know what the outcome will be, because we might be looking at a combination of emotions that was not anticipated or was not fully what we expected. So we need to be prepared for the unforeseeable classroom outcomes or unpredictable, right? Unpredictability is going to be very high, I believe. And at the same time, there is a great level of predictability as well. The more I develop repertoire in teaching and working with emotions. Now, something else about the emotions is that we can help them learn in the classroom about themselves and how to positively interact with others and to develop socially. This can be taught in the classroom, and especially in the language classroom, we're very, very lucky and privileged to be teaching the language in which they are going to express themselves. An example here would be teaching them adjectives to name their own emotions, and at the same time teaching them to notice their own bodies when they are younger, noticing their own bodies, and depending on culture and how they look at each other, little by little, looking at the other person to identify different parts, different emotions, touching their own bodies to understand heat, for example, or different reactions, different physical reactions that are going to give a name to what they are feeling, and they can understand better that their reaction just makes them human, and what to do about the reactions is what's going to come of that, right? And then when I'm talking about emotions at an individual level, later on working with empathy, because I want students to develop a more inclusive group of children or inclusive behavior for later on in life. And if they develop empathy at this very early age in the classroom with their learning of other subjects, they learn to appreciate diversity. And diversity here could be any sort of diversity. It's an open it's an open umbrella term for gender, ethnical diversity, accents, languages, different things. It will depend on the context, but understanding that they're all different and they're not better than anyone. For example, we're all human beings. At a certain level, we're all the same. So that would be a very good lesson in developing empathy, or they will also develop healthy relationships because they can understand their own reactions, as in the first slide, for example, their own emotions, but also listen better and understand other people's reactions, other people's sentences or desires or needs for a game, if they're younger children, for a more complex game, if they're older children, or for a play, for a school setting, for a project, and for life, because that will be more and more complex as they develop, right? Also, they learn to communicate better. If I know that I have other people who are different from me, I will also, as a child and as a teenager and later on as an adult, I will also develop awareness to choose or to learn more language to be able to cope with different people and to expand my repertoire in what I can say, the questions I can ask, or what language may not be taken as respectful and things like that, and also providing a clearer picture of what I'm feeling now, to ask, please, I cannot talk about that right now, for instance. These things matter in the classroom, and they will surely matter in the future. This is what might change the world. Also, they can collaborate more effectively. Collaboration is a buzzword in education nowadays, but many of our projects or many of our situations, they're just putting pieces together and handing it over to the teacher, back to the teacher, or things like that, rather than having an outcome that was not my part, my peers, or whatever. It's the collection, but the collective agreement on something. And this is really hard to be done. If we start earlier with children, they're going to collaborate more effectively in the future. A very good example of developing empathy in the English language classroom here. Again, we're working with the feelings, giving names, nominating our feelings, for example. But if we look at the box here, what we can see in others, strengths. So at this point, I'm not looking at my own strengths, but I'm looking at others. So I'm encouraging my students to look at others and work together rather than, because that will come naturally to us. The question about what can be developed in a natural way, in a natural manner, yes, we can all naturally focus on the negatives. That's what we learn with psychology. But if we train ourselves to look at strengths, we might tip the scale back to a more equitable, a more empathetic world and dealing with the classroom and others. So in this activity here, they're looking at each other and trying to find strengths, and that's how they collaborate. That's how they build healthier relationships, because they can see that everybody will bring something that can empower the whole group or the project or different ideas. Maybe not what you were expecting, maybe not your strength. We're all different, but by looking at the differences from a more positive perspective, we shift the paradigm there. Also, all the understanding of a more empathetic relationship in the classroom and talking about their emotions and their strengths, I will focus on confident communication. And let me just go back here. The confident communication is very important that we understand. Does not mean that I feel empowered and I feel like I'm the most important person in the world, therefore I can speak confidently. The opposite, I would say, confident communication is, I know that if I make a mistake, I belong to this group and I'll have support, but I belong and I can say something. That's the confidence that we want, or at least that I'm advocating for here. The confidence in a way that I can express myself, I can be myself, and I can rely on others to be themselves and to respond. And we're going to communicate more humbly and confidently at the same time. So if I'm encouraging social emotional learning together with language learning, children can learn to disagree, for example, in a respectful manner. Remember what I said in the beginning, I'm very optimistic, but it doesn't mean that I ignore or I'm blind to conflict. On the contrary, I know, I'm very much aware of all conflict, but the conflict doesn't have to become heated argument, discussion about something. It can be a more respectful disagreement and a more collaborative discussion, more productive discussion. The children are going to be better able to express their emotions, because we started earlier with vocabulary, with understanding their own bodies and everything. And they will learn to negotiate. Because I understand that perhaps it's too much for me, I can say, I would like to take a break at this moment, or perhaps I need support from somebody else, asking for help, or asking a question, can we then do this, which is suggesting something different. It has to do with both the social emotional learning that is taking place in the language classroom. As I mentioned earlier, they're going to be able to be themselves, be proud of themselves, and feel that they also belong. If I'm doing a step-by-step, and mind you, I think I forgot to say it earlier on, it doesn't come quick. It is not going to be immediate. I mean, we need to be very patient with ourselves, with the children, with the world, because I won't see a different world in the next 5 years. But I know that there is some impact if I'm actively working on that, rather than just letting it flow like it would. Then there is no change, because the results, we know what the results are. That's what we did decades ago, right? And they will also collaborate and creatively solve problems. Problems that could be simpler for children. How are we going to arrange the desks for the next class to work as a group? I don't know. To more complex problems, how do we stop the ocean pollution, plastic or something, that they're going to have their own idea. So that depends on it. It has to be age appropriate, but little by little stretching the complexity. And they can do that because they're learning to express themselves and being more confident in expressing their ideas, even if the idea doesn't make any sense at first, right? An example of that, the task is at the bottom. They have to talk about trip and find a compromise, choose the right trip for the group that would be inclusive for the whole group. And basically, it's a speaking activity, and I can think of an English lesson that would have an English activity, a speaking activity for them to discuss, come to a conclusion. If I don't interfere with a social and emotional learning background, they might just use the language, do whatever, and the outcome is going to be exactly the same in the next group, because they're not really feeling that they belong. Whereas if I encourage them to put their ideas across and ask for different things, if they don't like it, just express it. I don't know how to cycle. I don't know how to ride a bike, or I don't really like hiking. Can we think of something else? So it's not only using the language, but being true to themselves and being part of the group and finding a compromise. Agreeing or disagreeing is the language, but they use it to actually find a compromise that will be fair, or actually includes everyone in the group, whatever the group I have, because it will depend. The outcomes, again, we're going to be talking about open outcomes. They will depend, right? Now, some practical ideas here. I think Mabel mentioned bullying here. I will add an idea and be sure to talk about that, okay? And probably I said I sometimes can see, but I can see the questions when there are questions, because in the chat I get lost, okay? Okay, let's go for the ideas. So practical ideas. First one that I mentioned earlier on was to help students identify name feelings through pictures, through facial expressions, through their own bodies, through observing others, through talking about people they know, perhaps. Start with themselves, start with pictures, then with themselves, then with others in a more respectful way. Second practical tip, encouraging projects that require cooperation and an open outcome. The one we talked about earlier on, that was on finding a trip, getting a trip. I don't know what they're going to decide. It's an open outcome. It does not depend, it does not come from the teacher, because they will have to agree on something and cooperate, put things together, work on their strengths and everything. Then asking questions that encourage multiple perspectives. I find from experience and reading that it's also very helpful in terms of bullying, in helping them reflect a little bit more about their attitudes, their behavior and everything, that it will come up again later, but asking them how they think they would feel, how they think the other person felt, how they think someone else, it could be a famous character, for example, would feel, allows them to put themselves in other people's shoes and also reflect on their own, because sometimes, and I can give you some real examples, but for time constraints, I cannot do that many times. I have to remember not to tell many stories, but with children, I had once started with a question that was an 8-year-old children group. And I started with a question, how would you feel if you were in their situation and they were bullying, this one was bullying the other? And he said, but I don't think that was disrespectful at all. And for him, it was not. I mean, probably in his family, they talked like that and it would be fine. It's the same thing we're looking at nowadays, trying to change the wording and being more respectful with people. And then I asked him, okay, so let's shift this. How do you think that person felt? And he said, apparently offended, but I don't understand why. And then we opened up questions to find out why and what it could have caused, what the words meant and everything. It takes time, okay? It really takes time. But it's still, again, a bit of language, a bit of creativity, characters. If it doesn't work with a person that they can see, working with characters first. Movies, back then it was seriously Toy Story we were working on, and they would work on how the characters would feel to then go back to their own situation. It is a very, very helpful tool, but it takes time. And talking about characters, instead of choosing to teach about individual successes that will just keep the world going as it goes round, perhaps choosing characters or situations, footballers, people who are known for collaboration, for being empathetic, for being good communicators and part of a team rather than super individual success that is usually a lot of exception or a lot of bullying throughout their lives to be the one that is out there rather than I'm here, but because of other people. So that might be very helpful as well. This is also very helpful on bullying, encouraging them to reflect on hurtful behavior or hurtful words, what the impact is, how they could say it differently if sometimes it's just, or if it's making fun of others, why is it so important for you, helping them reflect on their own needs to actually imbalance that, right? And helping them notice that they will achieve more with other people. It is not easy. Asking another practical ideas, asking for their help and their input on projects, questions, where it is applicable, because it's not always possible. Sometimes we just have to tell them, I'm sorry, I know you think the person was not heard, but they were. So we're asking for their input, but sometimes they need a bit of direction. But ideas for projects, what could we save this week? I don't know. Or questions like creative questions. What color should we have on the wall, or should we have both open-ended questions and open, super open for their input on building the classroom sort of activities that they enjoy, for example. This is actually giving them a voice and making them feel that they matter, not only to each other, but to the group, to the teacher as well in society, because that's, at the end of the day, this is what really matters. It's the whole mass of people, not only to each other. One very, very important thing in terms of developing empathy, helping them develop empathy, is avoiding the emphasis on competition. And I know there are external factors that do not allow for that, but grading students or giving them tasks and tests that will only allow for certain skills to show, or competitions, games that are more competitive than collaborative. These things are teaching them that you have to be better, and the other people, the other people's strengths do not matter unless they make me win. Whereas if I'm emphasizing collaboration more in their reports and the feedback that I give them rather than a grade, I might, and I will surely, focus on empathy, and that everybody has something that will be added to the equation here, and we're all going to build this together. Most importantly, oh, sorry, I skipped one. You see, Tutu? Storytelling. That's why I was telling you many different stories, and we could be here for a long, long time, but Will would kill me. But storytelling helps children notice things that might not be obvious when they're thinking about their peers, or because they don't want to think about their peers at first, but they relate to films, they relate to characters, they relate to storyboards. That's why many of the good materials will come with a story for us to discuss, right? And finally, and most importantly, seriously, most importantly, we need to be a role model. If we want them to develop empathy and to be better communicators, we need to challenge ourselves to that in terms of practicing empathy, not only towards the children, but towards our peers, in the corridors, in our lives, because it comes out of our pores. We can try and teach whatever, but what we say, if it's not connected to what we are doing or how we are behaving in life, if it's disconnected, we're teaching them that, not what we are saying. So we really have to work on that, not to be robots or perfect people. That does not exist. We are still people, but also acknowledging our vulnerabilities and saying, I'm so sorry, I shouted at you. I lost control. Let's analyze my reaction here. Why not, right? And engage the children in also learning that sometimes we're going to react poorly, but we can still do something about it rather than pretend it didn't happen. And just a final possibility for a different world, just some words, and I'll leave the words here, not read them again, because I'm not that sleepy. But this is what I believe we could have, a more empathetic world, if we believe it can happen and if we are willing to do the work and fight for it. Thank you very much. I know that Will is going to send you the PowerPoint later, so you're going to have the references. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marcella. That was wonderful. What an amazing talk. It's just yeah, lovely, just really nice little sort of journey through how to think about this. And I think for a lot of teachers it is really, really difficult, isn't it? To I mean, you spent a long time talking about inappropriate behavior. Well, I'm sorry if I've said that incorrectly, but you know, it's difficult, isn't it, for some teachers to react to those situations. And
it is,
know,
because we were not taught like that. Yeah, we were not taught like that. So it's I think it's a lot more difficult for us than it is for the children who are now learning this, who will become teachers later. They will take it for granted, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we're all sort of teachers in some shape or form, and we sort of impart things to people, you know, knowledge and skills and attitudes to people in some shape or form or older. So every action we do is so important. It's got ripples, hasn't it?
Yeah, it does.
I just think it's difficult for teachers to know with confidence that they are reacting in a sort of safe and productive way. So thank you.
I thank you and everybody for being awake, or I don't know.
Same.
After all, yeah.
So I just think the person who's up the latest at the moment.
Yeah.
All right, we've got one more poll for you. Let's bring it up. Darrow, if you got it there. So do you observe specific differences in emotional intelligence between Generation Z, that is the generation born before 2012, and Generation Alpha, born after 2013? Just out of interest, do you as a teacher see specific differences between those two ages, those two ranges of ages? Yes. And you
Yes.
do, Marcella, yes?
I do. I do. I feel it's I feel there is a difference, especially because the people who were born earlier, they're usually not exposed to as much critical questions as we have nowadays for the children. So these ones are going to have to put a lot more effort to see things from a different perspective rather than Generation Z. Sorry. Alpha. Alphas,
Yeah.
the alphas are actually going to have a huge advantage there in terms of the exposure they have, or the encouragement they have to react more confidently, or to understand, or to have more awareness of their own emotions. Yeah, it changes a lot.
I mean, I don't know if it's a different generation to Generation Alpha, but there's also the COVID generation of kids. I've got kids at that age.
Yeah.
They were sort of 1 and 2 during COVID, and it's curious as things are sort of turning up. And I'm on a board. I'm a governor at my kids' primary school, and we get to see this data and the differences. And they're saying, of course, the COVID generation are not as strong in reading and writing. And it's so sad that they're saying, of course, that this whole generation of children are sort of just taken a bit of a dip in their literacy skills, and I'm sure maybe their emotional intelligence has been impacted by that, by their lack of face-to-face interaction with people for so long at such a young age.
Yes, that was critical, right, during the pandemic. Yeah, I think it made it a lot more difficult. You're right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, I think we're going to just start bringing it to a close. Thank you so much again, Marcella, and enjoy your final session tonight. You've got your old friend Alex there, and Julia.
Thank you.
There, so have a lovely session, and thanks so much for putting that together, Marcella.
Thank you. Have fun. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye. Okay, so I'm going to be closing things off in a sec. I've got 2 more things to say to you, and then you're free to go. You can go now if you want, but I just wanted to share a couple more things. I'm hoping you can see that. Have I actually shared my screen? No. Okay, better do that. Okay, I'm going to assume you can see that. If you can't see that, everyone just put all the emojis, like all the negative emojis you've got. If you can see it, let's just see loads of hearts, if you can see that. Okay, so you saw it a few times in, great, thanks for the hearts and the thumbs up, good stuff. So you saw it in Marcella's talk just then. She mentioned learning well. This is a new. It's not a brand new course, but it's not been out for long. This is one of our treasures. This course, Learning Well. It's a course for young learners with its own wellness strand, well-being strand, not wellness, well-being strand. Which of course it has got a very strong language learning course. It is a language learning course, but it has well-being built in throughout the course, as well as communication skills practice, engaging activities, exam training, multi-literacies as well. And it promotes empathy, inclusivity, and global citizenship. However, it's got a separate component which looks entirely at well-being and helping learners to develop a strong sense of emotional wellness, emotional knowledge, attitudes to emotions, how to develop empathy, recognizing emotions when they're feeling them, recognizing emotions in others when they're feeling them, and how to react to that. It's got an entire component of that if you want to use it. But of course, at its heart, it's an English language learning course too. A really good one. So if you scan the QR code, you can have a look at that more. It's an American English, in case that matters to you. It's American English. So do take a look at that if you're interested. There's also a link. I think if you press resources at the bottom, there's a link that you can press there. If you're on Facebook and LinkedIn, and there should be a link in the chat box that you can click or scan the QR code. One final thing I want to let you know about is this is one of a 3 set we're doing, kind of a long-term mini conference kind of thing. So we've got this young learners session today. Thanks so much for coming to that. Wonderful to see loads of familiar names in that chat box. And on Tuesday, the 14th of November, we're moving on to secondary teens and engaging teens and ensuring that all teenagers learn in that classroom. So we're looking at differentiation, multi-ability classroom approaches, also specifically looking at differentiating during project work. And then we've got on the 1st of December, we've got an Educating Adults Day, which is looking at integrated skills. So sort of looking at the 4 skills together in one, sort of a process by exploring all 4 of those skills and developing them. Then we've got a second session looking at professional development and how to manage your own professional development or to manage the professional development of a teaching team. And then Kate Protsenko is going to be looking at sort of the new generation of life skills and what we can teach them now, which will be genuinely helpful later. That's it. A lot of you have been asking about the certificate and the virtual goodie bag. You've already chosen your virtual goodie bag. If you haven't, you'll get another chance later to select it. But for now, you'll get your virtual goodie bag in an email and you'll get your certificates. If you're on Facebook, there should now be a link in the chat box in the comments where you can select that and you'll be able to go to our website where you can get your certificates. So keep your eye out for that. And I think we need to stop things there. Thank you so much for coming. It's amazing to see you all and have a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone.